Good morning. I'm meteorologist Alexandra Cranford getting you a quick update on what's happening in the tropics on this Wednesday. And we don't have actually any named systems. There are no tropical storms. There are no hurricanes, but clearly we do have a couple of spots that we're watching. So as we look at these three different areas of disturbed weather, really these two are not going to be a big concern for any of our land areas around the U.S. What we're watching right now is this spot in the Caribbean Sea. This has been designated Invest 99L. So we all know these names are popping up, and really all that means is that it's an area of interest, an area of investigation, and it's right now just a tropical wave, and it's actually sitting over South America, incredibly, over the corner of Colombia here, and it looks like it will be drifting into the northwest Caribbean Sea, and it may then develop into a broad low pressure area. So we are looking at these three spots, but again, to point out, this one has a pretty low chance of development, will stay likely out at sea. This one is clearly not on a path toward the U.S. However, this has a pretty high chance of developing into a depression or tropical storm soon. And then, of course, here is the wave that we're watching. And this now does have a high chance, 80% of developing in the next 5 days. However, the 2-day outlook is much lower. This probably won't develop until the end of the week or maybe even this weekend, when it's somewhere in this general area around Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, possibly in the northwestern Caribbean Sea, or maybe even in the southern or southwestern Gulf. Now, we don't know a whole lot about it right now because it's not even tightening up just the littlest bit just yet. However, we're just kind of looking at the steering pattern for next week. I know, of course, in New Orleans, along the Gulf Coast, a lot of folks wondering, is it coming here? Well, we will have this feature, which we've been highlighting for a while, a big high pressure area that looks like it's going to block at least part of the Gulf Coast from whatever happens here. Let me show you what might happen, though. It's going to be sort of hovering in this general area. And notice that this particular model, this is the GFS model, wants to bring it out just off to the west of Louisiana. Now, we have seen this changing. A couple days ago, it was into Mexico. Yesterday, it was into Texas. Today, as of Wednesday, a couple of models bringing it toward central or southwest Louisiana. But the thing, of course, that we know this far out is that we really don't know for sure where this is going, because models are kind of just generally bringing it into the southern Gulf. But notice a couple bringing it just out to the west, one bringing it toward New Orleans. This is really just a grab bag of different scenarios, though, a few kind of fizzling it right here. So we'll have to wait and see. We know when there's not a developed system, there's not an organized system with a tight, low pressure center just yet. When that happens, when we're this early in the game, it's hard for models to predict what's going to happen. They don't do a good job of zeroing in on where the low is or developing it. So you know much more about the path really after it has developed. And it looks like, again, as I mentioned, it may not be till the end of the week or this weekend that we see that. So for now, the bottom line, there is development possible and likely, in fact, near Yucatan late this week. There is still a lot of uncertainty, though. We'll be watching closely in the New Orleans area and along our part of the Gulf Coast, of course, but really even over toward Texas and over toward the other side of the Gulf. Doesn't look quite as likely to go off to the eastern side, but we're just going to have to wait and see. How strong will that high be? What position exactly will that ridge of high pressure be in by the time this approaches us? And if it does approach the Gulf Coast, a lot of people want to know this. Well, if it did get near us, when would that happen? Well, this is very tentative, but it would be about Monday to Tuesday if we do see something developing trying to get into the northern part of the Gulf. As for the names, we've made it through Henri, of course. The next names on the list would be Ida and Julian, so we will see which one gets named first, if they do, the one farther out in the Atlantic or the one closer to us. So we could eventually, by weekend, early next week, be talking about either Ida or Julian. And keep in mind, we have already had the 8 named storms this year, 3 hurricanes, 1 major. And just comparing that quickly to last year at this time, last year, of course, so memorable for its, high number of storms. 13 named storms had already formed at this point in the year last year, 4 hurricanes and 1 major. And just looking at how much energy they produced, the accumulated cyclone energy, just another way. It's called ACE. We talk about this sometimes, just another way of kind of measuring how active a season is. It takes into account not only the number of storms, but also how strong they've gotten and how long they've lasted. And note that the number for this is 31 for us so far this year. last year at this point, we were a good bit more active. 43 was the number. And again, just looking at those 13 named storms from last year, that means we had already made it to the M name. That was Marco last year. And this year we're just at Henri. And again, looking into a possible Ida or Julian maybe forming either, again, that one spot that I showed you way out in the Atlantic or the one a little closer in the Caribbean Sea. So we'll see how it shapes up. At the middle of this week, the main point is just to keep in mind we're still watching everything. There's still a lot of uncertainty. Nothing has formed yet, but we will certainly be watching really closely for you. We'll be tracking everything. We'll keep you covered as we get through the weekend and into early next week.